So what's the point of self-awareness? The point of self-awareness is to provoke you to reflect objectively of yourself, to look at yourself in a realistic light, in a sensible light, in a mature light, and critique yourself, right? Identify those aspects of your attitude, of your perspective, perhaps your perception, how it is that you emotionally manage yourself, your habits, your behaviors, your actions. What is it about the way in which you live your life that just simply doesn't work? Right? What's true about that? Some people think about truth like it's some all-encompassing statement, that when you have the statement, all will be well with the world, and that's nonsense, all right? Truth is contextual, it's situational, it's personal, all right? And what is true for me? What is true for me? I have little time in my life for emotionally unregulated people. Right? I used to, years ago. And it's not because I'm compassionless. It's not because I lack empathy. I spent years of my life associating with and coaching and counselling emotionally unregulated people until I got bored of it. Right? I just simply got bored of it. Right? I got bored of dealing with disempowered people complaining about themselves. And every now and again, I would be able to kind of influence a person to the degree that they would take responsibility for their life and then go and do some stuff. And I'm still connected with some of these people. But back in the early days, when I first got into kind of applied psychology and kind of the personal growth, I operated as a coach, right? As a life coach. I would kind of work with some young men, some young ladies, until I stopped working with ladies altogether. Just wasn't something I was willing to do anymore for reasons. I was married, right? That was it. I would work with some kind of business leaders, a few CEOs, and identify this common thread, right? A lot of people would come to me and give me money expecting and waiting for me to fix and change something about their life, because I'm the coach and I should have the techniques that just make things happen. And that's not how personal growth works. That's not how change occurs, right? People only change once they change themselves, which requires discipline, which is what mental toughness is discipline, it's self-control, all right? You're only gonna be able and willing to change something about your life once you are disgusted with this habit or attitude, upon being able to identify how it's not serving you or how much damage it's doing. All right? People will not change until the desire to change becomes greater than the desire to remain the same. Right? Even up until 6 months ago, I used to be so loose and flexible with who I'd give my time to. I kind of took my time for granted as a man, as a human being, until I realised that the more time that I make available for people, the more of my time people will just take. The only person who has any respect or appreciation for my time in life is me. All right? Because it's my time. Right? My time belongs to no one else. All right? It's interesting, right? Time is our most valuable commodity in life, and it's the one thing that so many people take for granted and waste. Some people think they're going to live forever. I'm convinced. All right? If people appreciated the futility of life and that life can end in a split second, just like that, how many years do you think people would be inclined to going around in circles, dwelling on the past, feeling sorry for themselves, having little pity parties, complaining about how other people aren't meeting their needs? Right? If you knew you only had 7 days left to live, would you spend this time being bitter and judgmental? And how much time are you going to spend, posting bile on social media, right? Social media is like a bile pot, isn't it? You know what bile is? Bile is like that acidic residue in the bottom of your stomach once you've been sick after a meal, or if you've been, ill or something like that, and that's all that's left. And it's kind of burns your throat. Bile. That's what lives in social media these days. Bile. People hide behind the computer screens and pour out bile, and that's a big generalization, but it's also pretty true in the majority of cases, right? Because very, very few people give any consideration to how their actions and behaviors and attitudes impact or influence other people. All right? This can be the cornerstone that pivots us to change. All right? Realization of what our habits and attitudes and actions are costing, not just us, but also other people. So I want to offer you here a self-reflection model. All right, now you don't have to take this, you can leave it, you can do what you will. But the stronger you become at disciplining yourself to self-reflect objectively, the wiser you will become, as you're going to be able to see with greater clarity exactly how it is that you need to change to become a more virtuous, a more mature, a more responsible human being. All right, so you're going to have an attitude right now. You're going to have some habits going on in your life right now, some behavioural tendencies. You're going to be committing your life to something that's either going to be great or bad. So it's very, very difficult to be specific with a model like this, right? We can only really be general, reason being because I'm speaking to potentially tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people who are all going to have completely different contexts and situations going on. So that's why I want to remain context free, all right, as much as possible. Your attitudes and your actions, all right, will either be working for you or they won't. On a very, very basic level, self-reflection is kind of like looking in the mirror. Our habits and actions will either be good for us and good for other people, or they're going to be good for us but not good for other people. Sometimes our attitudes and habits, actions, behaviours will be good for other people, but not good for us. And then there's some people in life whose attitudes, habits, actions, beliefs, worldviews, perspectives are not good for them and also not good for other people. All right? Wisdom comes in knowing the difference between these four. Right, so we become wise and we start to identify the difference between these four when we review our attitudes or our behaviours, right? And we ask ourselves questions. Reflectfully, not in a conversation. You can ask these questions off yourself, by yourself, when in your own company. Because you can't lie to yourself. Not forever, anyway. You can lie to other people. You can claim to other people that you believe in some stuff. But when you're alone, all by yourself, in bed at night time with no one else there, you would be a fool to lie to yourself. It's impossible for you to lie to yourself because you always know, deep down inside, what is true. Right? So self-reflecting leads us into truth. If you do want to act and conduct yourself in a certain way, so be it. But at least do yourself a favour and ask the question, how will I positively or negatively impact me here? What might the cost of this be? If I continue down this path in 20 years, will I get what I really want? Right? If I make this change, will my life go smooth? If I don't make this change, what will it cost me? What cost may I pick up? All right, we're talking about you counting the cost of your actions, of your habits, of your attitudes, counting the cost, counting the potential cost, right? This kind of gives you a starting point for becoming decisive, right? A lot of people go through life making emotionally sporadic decisions, not giving any consideration to what their outbursts and little kind of expeditions are going to cost them at some point in the future. So when we ask ourselves this question, how will I positively or negatively impact me here? You are provoked to look at how it is that you might be penalised or how it is that you might have your life enhanced through however it is that you act or behave or what decision that you make. So it's one level. The second level of self-reflecting, if you can even do that, and some people don't even ever get around to doing this, right? Wonder in their 50s and 60s why they're living such destitute lives. Because they spend their 20s and their 30s and their 40s prancing around, putting on some sort of show, trying to impress people and have their ideologies heard and acknowledged, and they try to be loved, and it costs them everything. It costs them respect. It costs them being taken seriously from other sensible people. So people grow old, alone, destitute, disconnected, because all the sensible people got married and connected with other sensible people in their younger years. Right? Some people get left on the shelf in life. It's sad, because some people delay and put off developing character and maturity until it's kind of too late. It's never too late, but you're going to reach a stage of life where there's kind of no clawing back your younger years, so don't take your life for granted. How will you positively or negatively impact another person? Right? Everything you say, everything you do is kind of like picking up a stone and throwing it into a lake. There will always be a ripple effect. The question is in what direction are your ripples a-going, all right? But some people live such reckless lives, all right? We've got a neighbour who lives close to us. There's bonfires in his back garden in the middle of a housing estate, other children running around playing. He has his own children running around in a building site, all right? My goodness, this neighbour, he works offshore. He's got 2 young children. He'll kind of work away for 4 months at a time. Now, come on, it's a common cultural thing. I get it. When I was young, my father worked away for sometimes months at a time, right? He thought he was doing what fathers should do. I'm convinced of it. You know, provide money and put food on the table, all that sort of thing. But it came at the cost of the connection that he had with his family, which he ended up losing. All right? There are sometimes some costs that we incur in life that we don't want to incur, that we never intended to incur. And this is the importance of counting the cost, right? How will you positively or negatively impact another person in your life? Think about the people that you care with to start with. Think about someone that you actually care about, right? Perhaps even someone that you love, right? How does your attitude, your actions, your behaviours stand to potentially undermine this other person's life? Right? I'm a married man. I've been married for like 9 years. I love my wife. I'm completely aware that how I conduct myself reflects upon my wife. If I conduct myself in a childlike way, then my wife loses credibility through my inconsistency. I'm just saying that, you know, I cannot say or do anything without my wife's reputation being indirectly affected. All right? So I would not be willing to do that. But hey, that's just me. I know there's a lot of people who just don't care. Blasé, I don't care. It's my life. I'm free. I'm free to do what I want to do. Surely, freedom's about just living however we want. Being authentic is just about expressing ourselves however we feel right now, right? Gibberish. Garbage. There's a lot of self-orientated individuals out there who give no consideration to anyone else other than having a little emotional buzz, a little emotional high. It's called instant gratification. It's a childlike way of living life, right? There's nothing mentally strong about it. There's a lot of arrogant people out there, right? There's a lot of pride-filled people out there, but pride and arrogance are not mental toughness, right? Very, very, very different, all right? It's just weakness and cowardice in disguise, all right? It's kind of like fancy dress parties. You know, you ever go to a fancy dress party when you were young? You know, when you wear your Halloween costume and you're out there and no one actually knows who you are, no one can see you. You can kind of get away with stuff, can't you? You can be a little bit mischievous and be a little bit naughty. Right? When Halloween came around most years, when I was about 11 or 12 years old, you know what I would do? One of my best friends had like 3 dogs. So we would go into his back garden and get brown paper bags. We'd get brown paper bags from the local corner shop, sweet shop, like sweet bags, and we would scoop up dog poo, put it into the brown bag, put a little clipper on the top, pour lighter fluid over the brown bag, put it on someone's doorstep, set it on fire, knock on the door, run away and giggle, hide behind the hedge. So when the kind of person comes to the door, oh, there's a fire on the doorstep, they're like that, standing dog poo. Oh, what a little rascal I was, all right? But I wouldn't have done that without my mask on, all right? I wouldn't have done that if people knew who I was, all right? I only done that when my identity was hidden, all right? And I think there's a principle we can take from this. Some people put on masks in life to cover up who they really are and what they're all about. All right? Just saying, take from that what you will. But I'm certainly not teaching you to go and prank people by putting stuff on their doorsteps. That would be irresponsible of me. Right, okay. But here's the thing. We're all positively and negatively impacting other people all of the time. I'm impacting you right now. All right? But my intentions are to impact you for the better. Right? Even if you take a little bit of offence, all right, that's okay. You can live with that. You're a human being. Offence isn't going to kill you. Sticks and stones and all that kind of stuff. All right, but committing to the process of personal growth and improvement, your future will thank you for this, right? Your relationships will thank you for this. This is going to positively enhance every single aspect of your life. Therefore, what I'm saying is good, even if it's hard. How will your attitude or actions affect those people closest to other people? All right. Say, for example, you're a manager or a leader, something like that, and you have a bad day because you're grumpy and you're completely emotionally unregulated. In fact, you're an emotional train wreck. So you're stomping around in the office, grumping at people, snapping at people, doing all that sort of thing. So you have a bad day. This rolls over onto the people on your team. So they end up having a bad day just because you can't manage yourself because you're an emotional infant. And then these people have to go home to their families. So what happens if these people's, spouses, husbands, wives, their partners have had bad days as well? They get home that night, do you think that home life's going to be healthy? How's that going to affect children? Now again, most folk won't even care. Most people go through life with the blinkers on. I'm having a bad day, I'm having a happy day, and because I'm the centre of the world, everything else is absolutely irrelevant. So you're going to have a bigger picture in your life. Your attitudes, your behaviours, your actions, your habits will be either getting you closer to this bigger picture or it's going to be taking you in the opposite direction, right? You have the final say in this, right? No one else gets to control how you live your life. Like, of course there's people out there who, say, oh, this person's made me feel a certain way. Of course. Oh, yes, of course, right? Do you seriously think, right, if we were to think rationally for a second, do you seriously think that it's possible for me to make you feel anything? Now, the only way it's going to be possible for me to make you feel anything is if I am in complete control of you. But we know, don't we, that I am not in complete control of you. All right? We know that you are in complete control of you. Sometimes you might not choose to take complete control of you, granted, right? Come on, we're all in this learning process. But ultimately, you have the final say over what you do, over how you feel, what you think, what you say, all that kind of stuff, don't you? You are the manager of your life, right? Your life is your responsibility. If you have problems, whose problems are they? Are they mine? Yours. They're yours. If you have feelings, whose feelings are they? Mine? Yours. Yours. Right. So if your feelings are yours, whose responsibility is it to manage them? Mine or yours? Cool. Yours. How possible is it for me to say something, bear in mind I'm outside of you, and put an emotion inside of you? Unless, of course, I'm like Ghost Rider or something like that. Maybe I'm like a Marvel superhero who can just somehow penetrate people and put stuff inside of people. Or I'm not aware of this skill set. I might have it. It might be an unconscious competency that I have. I don't know. But I don't think so. All right? We're all in control of ourselves, although many people don't choose to take control of themselves. Right. How I act and behave influences my future. All right. I acknowledge this, hence the reason I make calculated decisions all of the time, never emotionally charged ones. The last degree of self-reflecting, how will my action or attitude affect those people closest to me? All right. Which brings me back to my wife. Right. How will my actions or attitudes affect those people closest to me? Do I want my children to be undermined because of the reckless way in which I live my life? Do I want my children just to look at me as a disempowered joke, a weak-willed man? No, I'm not having that. Not on my watch. That's not going to happen. Am I going to be viewed as inconsistent, as unsincere, as unreliable by my wife, by my neighbours, by the people that I work with? No, I want to be trusted. And we can only trust those people who demonstrate themselves to be consistent over time. Consistency is the fruit of self-reflecting, growing in self-awareness, and becoming disciplined in our ways. To regulate and manage yourself in a mature way, not in an emotional, unregulated or sporadic way.